Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us, Aman. So we have with us Mr. Aman Mandhok, who is senior analyst at Counterpoint Research. And Aman is going to talk to us about the impact of COVID-19 on the global automotive industry. And he's also going to share insights on how the Indian automotive and CV industry has been affected by COVID. And he's also going to share some views on how we can actually try and come out of this crisis with a kind of an action plan for different stakeholders. So over to Aman for the presentation.
Thanks, Bala, for your introduction, and it's my pleasure to be contributing here. And this presentation will talk about how COVID will impact global automotive industry, and definitely we can draw a lot of parallels for Indian automotive industry as well.
Yeah.
So starting with what are the major challenges that automakers need to prepare themselves for to overcome this COVID pandemic. So majorly, the challenges that we see are, first of all, uh, financial crunch. We are seeing automakers really trying hard to maintain their liquidity position, and that's the first priority for automakers, and that's the priority for all major automakers, leaving no automaker behind. So they are trying to secure their liquidity position by securing their existing credit lines, applying for loans, doing salary cuts, and also recently Volkswagen announced that they are losing some 2.2 billion per week due to plant shutdowns. And these automakers always have some running costs, whether they do sales or not. They need to pay salaries, they need to pay their debt payments. So that's the pressure on automakers, and that's the key priority for automakers. And recently, French government also announced that they are planning to bail out PSA and Renault with a package of around 7 billion euros. So that's one challenge that automakers are facing. And secondly, automakers need to prepare themselves for uneven regional recoveries. They need to think where we should invest money, which markets are good, which markets will recover faster, which markets would have better government support, and which markets would have inherent drivers for long-term growth. So that is another challenge that automakers need to prepare themselves. Thirdly, we see there are a lot of R&D cost cuts and launch delays.
Correct.
And automakers are trying to maintain a very lean structure. They are big companies like GM are moving away from unprofitable markets. Companies like Ford are scrapping their unprofitable sedan and hatchback models, and they are focusing on SUVs, more profitable SUVs. And when in these times, automakers are trying to cut R&D costs. They are trying to save money in in research which would not bear fruit in foreseeable future. So we see a lot of launch delays as well. GM has postponed all its delays, all its updated models in US to 2022, and we see automakers in India as well. They are postponing their major updates. So the minor updates they are bringing it online, but the major updates they are postponing. So that is another challenge that we see. And next we see the reducing dependency on China. Automakers have now realized that they have suffered by over relying on China, and China plays a big part in global automotive supply chain. Even for countries like India, Chinese imports account for some 27% of global of the total component imported in the country. So this auto supply chain is very complex, and even a delay of a critical component can stop the entire production. So it's important now for automaker to have more of localized production, to have more options in terms of suppliers to supply products. So I think that will happen. And another thing, what I feel is there is a lot of growing skepticism against China from US and Europe on how it has handled coronavirus. So this this is there is a growing political will of restricting trade with China. So previously we have seen US and China trade war, and now we see programs like America First, Make in India. All these programs will gain traction in coming future. And recently, Japan has earmarked some 2.2 billion US dollar package to help their companies to shift their production base from China back to Japan. So automakers, need to prepare themselves for these, shifts in supply chain. And another, trend or challenge that we see is, automakers need to prepare themselves for upcoming regulatory changes. There will be a lot of regulatory changes because without support from government, auto industry in, especially in Europe, cannot grow further. On one hand they have to sell their cars, and on the other hand they have to maintain they have to reduce their emission levels, which incurs cost. So we see a possibility that government delaying their emission targets by a few years till the industry copes up with COVID-19. So automakers are already lobbying European Commission to delay this carbon dioxide norms by a few years. And we also see return of scrappage policies. And in India also, scrappage policy is at the final stage. So we see return of scrappage policy, and it will really help the automotive industry as a whole. And if coupled with some subsidy for EVs, it will really encourage car buyers to scrap their old cars and shift to EVs. So we see some support from the government in terms of regulations benefiting the market. Another trend that we see is reducing cab travels, and this is probably the only silver lining as far as new car sales are concerned. We see growing threat in the minds of people to avoid traveling by public transport. And moreover, so when we have seen, like previously, the growth in shared mobility have really dented the new car sales, but going forward we see that decline in cab travels due to social distancing would encourage travelers to buy their own private vehicles. And we also see some micro mobility like electric cycles and electric kick scooters to gain momentum. Yeah, so that's about some challenges that automakers need to prepare themselves for. And next, coming to some of the upcoming trends that we see for in this time. So we have spotted majorly two significant trends. First is the growing acceptance of safety features and emerging health features in cars. Some of these features have been implemented but have not gained that much traction. Some of the features are still in development stage, but we see more and more health features being incorporated in cars as people become more aware about their health. And most population in other countries are aging, and they spend a lot of time in cars. So these are some of the drivers which are encouraging car buyers to look for some health and safety features. And recently, Chinese manufacturers like SAIC and Geely have started to incorporate N95 level air purifiers in their cars. And we also see other automakers following this trend. And we also see a lot of scope for health related connected services being incorporated in cars. And this, the development of these connected services is not possible single-handedly by any automaker, and it will involve stakeholders from across the value chain, including telecom operators, hardware suppliers, technology companies, cloud operators, insurance companies, hospitals. So, and there will be a lot of big data being stored, as opening up a lot of revenue potential for a lot of players in the ecosystem. So, and the second trend we see is shift towards digital retailing. As you must be aware that nowadays all cars that are being sold are sold online. So dealers and automakers are forced to shift online. So they have to shift online. So what is happening is they are also learning about this online sales, and they're also realizing that it's realizing the benefits of cost sharing and a closer customer contact, because inventory accounts for a huge cost for dealer. And car buyers are also getting more aware about online sales, and from the feedback that we are getting, people are actually finding online sales to be much simpler and hassle free, and it is really increasing their confidence in online sales. And millennials are already exposed to uh, channels like autocar, car.com, and they're already aware of all the specifications, price comparison, reviews. So a lot of information are already available online, and the shift towards online sales was already happening before COVID, but we think that post COVID it will only accelerate. However, we don't expect this trend to be equally seen in all countries. It will depend upon country to country. So like for instance, in India we see most people still prefer a brick and mortar experience. They want to have a feel of the car, and they need to it's a big ticket item and an emotional purchase for them. So we see this trend accelerating in mature economies like US and Europe more. Yeah, this slide explains about the impact, on sales for the global automotive industry, and it will have a very significant adverse effect on the global automotive sales. And we see, China to be recovering fastest. They have already controlled the spread of coronavirus, and uh, plants like automotive plants have already started to operate at almost full potential, and the footfalls in dealerships have also started. So we see a fast recovery in China, but having what has been done, we see still it will be around 14% decline in sales in China. Situation in US and Europe still remains critical, even though automakers have plans to open up their plants. However, we see still situation remains critical, and the supply chain, because not all plants are open, not all supplier bases are open. So, and as discussed, automotive supply chain being very complex. So we are still critical about these regions. So overall, we see a huge decline in sales at a global level. And some of the policy recommendations in India. Automotive industry has requested the government to, uh, uh, CIAM and other associations have requested to make automotive industry as a part of essential services. This will really help the entire supply chain, to warm up, as all dealers, all supply partners, when the entire supply chain runs, then we can expect full production, then we can expect 100% production. And government can help, small suppliers, dealers, and contract workers by supplying these subsidies. And there is a lot of tax on cars at the moment, and cars comes under 28% GST. And if you include all other taxes like cess, road tax, and all, they account for almost 50% of the cost for the luxury vehicles. So there's a lot of scope to reduce to reduce tax, and this will really help Indian automotive industry to bounce back. And government can also introduce income tax benefit on auto loans, which would encourage car buyers to spend on these big ticket items. And as already discussed, vehicle scrappage scheme can be a key enabler for demand. So yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, declared the package, the economic package of 20 lakh crore. But we need to see how this package is used for automotive industry, whether it's a fiscal package or a monetary package, or whether it's in the form of soft loans, or because if it is in the form of loans, it would only add to balance sheets, and it would need to be repaid. So yeah, this is in short, the impact of COVID-19 on the global and India market.
Yeah, man.
If you have any questions, you can on this.
Yeah, certainly. So as we had, firstly, thank you for that overview on the global and the Indian, market from COVID. You could probably put it to the next slide. We can have that as a standard slide, and then we can have this Q&A. Yeah, I'd also put my video here visible. Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, few things we'd like to know from you, Aman. How do you think the MSMEs in the automotive industry, they're a very, very important and an integral part of the automotive industry. And we have a number of MSMEs in our country. How would they be handling this crisis, and what should they prioritize on, if you could throw some light?
I think this MSME is the hardest hit segment of the entire ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And it is very difficult for them to really pay salaries. So the first and the foremost thing to do would be to just secure their finances. Mm-hmm. And that's the and moreover, if we see most of the MSME were able to pay salaries in the month of March, but in the month of April we did not see any vehicle sales. Mm-hmm. So this sector would be the first one to get under pressure, and the big companies like Suzuki and Tata can still survive. They would also have access to credit, but MSME would be the most vulnerable part. So I'm hoping that government package brings some subsidies, some wage benefits to these MSMEs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they should prioritize on their liquidity.
Right. Okay. Mm. You mentioned about digital retailing of vehicles. So what do you think vehicle dealerships should then do? Because if it's going to affect them adversely, how do you think they will operate? And also, since they have a large workforce on the ground level, people going for sales and customer visits, how do you think that segment will actually handle this entire post-COVID period?
So I think it will be a bit of challenge for dealership, and mostly because it's not possible for them to arrange home test drives for a long time. It incurs cost, it incurs time, and also the major part is their inventory. They are already having a lot of prior inventory because of existing slowdown previous to COVID. So they already have inventory, and I think what they can do is to shift more and more online and to maintain less inventory. Automakers can use their regional stock area to maintain cars. And I think in future, this dealer, the overall automotive industry should adopt just-in-time delivery, wherein the inventory days for dealer should come from somewhere around 45 days at present to maybe around 10 days. That would really help, and definitely shifting to online would really help to reduce cost.
Yeah, so this is one main trend we are seeing, right? A definite shift towards online and digital selling. So that's a big, probably a game changer post COVID. We could, if you could call it so.
Correct. Yeah. That is now it is becoming. Earlier, it used to be like good to have feature, but
Right.
now it's increasingly
Must have.
becoming a must have.
Must have feature. Right. True. Yeah, and also an extension of the dealerships, which is sales, is the aftermarket, the after sales side of the business. Again, it is personnel heavy. We have a lot of people employed in this sector across our country. How do you think that sector will cope up? Because servicing is definitely something which has to be done by people. I don't know if there can be a replacement for this. How much of a challenge is it for this particular sector, Aman?
I think nowadays even after sale markets is also shifting online, and a lot of after sale franchises have online options. So that will definitely play a big role going forward. And in international markets, there is also a trend of over the air software updates. So I think that will gain traction. And overall, becoming more digital in the sense, having smart showrooms would reduce the manpower, would help in reducing manpower at dealer and at the dealer level, and to some extent at after sales as well.
Okay. Mhm. Right. Another area, mainly for the suppliers, automotive suppliers, and also a little bit to the OEMs. Now, what's becoming very clear as we speak right now, we hear from most of the automotive OEMs that their plants are actually slowly resuming operations, partially at least, and slowly and surely the suppliers will also, follow suit, and they will also start manufacturing and supplying to the OEMs. So there, definitely, they would have taken care of employee health, sanitization, and governance of the employees. That part seems to be taken care of. While these are internal issues, uh, when they open up to the market, where is the growth driver for them? What are the growth drivers for them to actually focus on, so that when they manufacture, that will actually make sense and go and reach their customers? So what do you think are the external growth factors and areas which OEMs and suppliers should typically focus on?
I think there are the as far as India is concerned, there is strong inherent drivers like young population, like increasing income levels, like current low penetration of cars. That will really help OEMs to sustain in long term. Once this COVID and the moderating economy factors are gone. So I think, yeah, and moreover, I think the trend going forward would return to owning small cars, as people would try to maintain social distancing. So they would come back to smaller cars.
Okay, so you feel, as you indicated as well, the decline in the preference for shared mobility will probably be a very good growth driver, especially for the compact cars, right?
Exactly. So
Interesting.
last year, if you see, Indian market declined by 12%, and one of the main reasons for this decline was growing popularity of shared mobility
Shared mobility,
among
right?
millennials. So millennials do feel that it's much economical, and it's much sensible to go in a shared cab. But now they will really think twice
Absolutely
before
avoid.
they,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's how that will really benefit new car sales.
New cars, yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
As you rightly indicated in your presentation, that is one very important silver lining maybe for the automotive industry, and hopefully that will trigger some good sales in the upcoming months. Hopefully.
Exactly, exactly. So globally, these ride-hailing companies are really under pressure, and they are not able to, maintain their revenues. Recently, Uber laid off some 3,700 employees.
Right.
So yeah, the ride-hailing trips across the world
Will be difficult.
is not really stopped at the moment, but it will be really be on a decline. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. A couple of last questions, Aman. One is a very popular one actually from the industry stakeholders, some people in the industry. What is going to happen to the electric vehicle landscape post COVID? How is COVID going to affect the electric vehicle consumption across the globe, and also maybe if you can touch upon India?
So, if you talk about across the globe, we see that electric vehicles in long term would definitely gain traction because now it's a matter of survival for automakers, and they can't afford to leave electric vehicles. They can't. They have to focus. They have to shift towards electric vehicles. However, the crude oil prices are really coming down, and it might motivate some car buyers to stick to conventional vehicles.
Okay. Right.
And some automakers might, delay the launches of electric vehicles or for a few quarters. So, but yeah, in long term, the growth of EV looks good. And as far as India is concerned, we can segment the total EV market into two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and cars. So we see, three-wheelers to continue gain traction because in most of these three-wheelers, lead-acid batteries are used, which are manufactured indigenously. And I think battery sourcing would be a major issue in two-wheelers, which have now shifted to lithium-ion, and also for cars which operate on lithium-ion batteries. And it also provides a huge opportunity for India to construct its own ecosystem. So yeah, if government supports the industry in setting up lithium-ion plants, we already have the technology, and if government supports it in the form of subsidies and in the form of educating workforce to manufacture these batteries by subsidizing charging stations, we can really cope up. But in the short term, I see growth of EVs to be slow down, to be slow, because automakers would really try to focus on maintaining what sells the most, and they would really for short term put EVs on the back burner. This is especially true for India, where the EV market for cars is pretty small, and it's mostly it's mostly projected as to improve brand image of being more tech. So yeah, so these things can take a back seat as of now, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that makes it quite clear as well. Short term, I think we expect the conventional vehicles to still continue. Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. My last question will be on exports out of India, Aman, both vehicle exports as well as component exports. What are your views on exports out of India, especially considering the globally country borders might become a lot more tighter, and people countries might become a lot more stringent in letting components and even finished goods actually come into their borders. So, do you see any kind of change on the export side of the business?
I think eventually, when the borders open up, India has got a good case for increasing exports as countries shift from China to other countries, and the cost advantage of China has now come down, So earlier it used to be a very, economical to import from China, but now their cost advantage is coming down, and at the same time, Indian suppliers have really gone up the value chain in terms of technology. And so I think, yeah, we have like I see it in a very positive light in long term. Like we have a chance really to improve our ecosystem, and suppliers have chance to become more localized, supply to local players, and also in the exports market.
So, despite all these challenges, there are a number of positives that we can actually look at, right? I mean,
Exactly,
exports.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. As I
that's
told, as far as India market is concerned, we have very strong inherent drivers, and that will always continue to play in long term. So even though in short term we might have some glitches, but overall, like in long term, we see a good growth in India.
brilliant. So, thank you so much, Aman, for your time and for sharing your views with us, and also for the present. Yeah,
Thank you.
so
Thanks. Thanks
we'll
a
keep
lot.
in touch, and we hope that things will fall back to normal very soon in the industry, and I hope companies will be able to tide over this crisis in a good way as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Aman. Yeah, thank you
Thanks.
so
Thanks.
much.